Daily Bible Time, Dominic Steele. We're in Galatians chapter 4, last bit of chapter 3 today, and the Apostle Paul puts it, and it's lovely. Chapter 4, verse 4 of Galatians, when the time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law. So I'm redeemed. I was in some sort of captivity, the judgment of God. I was under the slavery, really, and now I am redeemed, brought free, and the outcome is that we might receive the full rights of sons. I'm a Gentile, and now I have the full right of a child of God. This is what God does. He intervenes into my life, to your life, and is so generous to me. He just intervenes by his Spirit into my life to give me faith, trust in Jesus Christ, to redeem me, to adopt me. So look what the Apostle Paul says to the Galatian Gentile Christians. You are all sons of God through faith in Christ Jesus. For all of you were baptized into Christ and have clothed yourself with Christ. We're all in Christ Jesus. We're all baptized into Christ. We're all clothed with Christ. We all belong to Christ. And the result is, verse 28, there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. Whatever your story, whatever your narrative, whether your narrative is Jew or Greek or slave or free or male or female, wow, you're all same standing, all one in Christ Jesus. Now, let's just unpack that a little, because it is a debated verse. Apparently, tragically, there was an old saying, an old prayer in cultural Judaism, where a Jewish man of the first century might pray, God, I thank you I was born a Jew, not a Gentile. God, I thank you I was born a free man, not a slave. God, I thank you I was born a man, not a woman. And, it is quite possible that in the cultural Judaism that the Apostle Paul was brought up in, he as a boy might have been taught to say that kind of prayer in the morning. But this passage of the Bible turns all of that on its head. If you have faith in Christ Jesus, then you have been redeemed with Christ. You are in Christ. Whether you are a male or a female, whether you are a slave or a free, whether you are a Gentile or a Jew, we are all one in Christ Jesus. This oneness in Christ Jesus before God, that was a struggle for the early church to work through. It took 5 chapters in Acts for the early church to come to terms with the idea neither Jew nor Greek. And really, this whole drama in Galatians is where Peter seems to have got confused about it again. But Paul is crystal clear. There is no distinction before God. Jew, Gentile, each group morally bankrupt, and each group, Jew, Gentile, recipients of God's pardoning grace. Now on the gender question, just to disclose, there are 2 different ways that people have run with this verse. Basically, there are 2 different views in biblical scholarship. Broadly speaking, one group that can be called the complementarian view, and the other group the egalitarian view. Complementarians hold that this passage shows that all humans have equal access to salvation in Christ, but they believe the passage still allows men and women to have different roles to play in family and church. And so they don't believe that this passage speaks to the social implication of family and church life. Rather, it's about standing before God in terms of salvation. And they hold that the context of the passage is what the law can achieve, what the promise of faith in Christ Jesus can achieve. So they'd hold Jew, Greek, slave, free, male, female are all one in Christ Jesus. But the passage is not speaking about social roles in society. Whereas egalitarians, they say Galatians 3:28 is the Magna Carta of humanity, the most important text that supports biblical equality, the most socially explosive text in the New Testament. And they would use this verse as a keyhole verse to guide their interpretation of all other gender-related verses in the New Testament. For egalitarians, Galatians 3:28 speaks of an equality that goes beyond equal access to salvation, and they would claim that the passage has major social implications, such as the removal of gender distinctions for roles within church and family life. So for the egalitarian, equality in being would lead to equality in function. Now, my own view is that the egalitarians are actually wrong, and the complementarian view makes better sense of the biblical text. Several points. One, I think the passage is talking about the law and salvation and faith in Christ Jesus, and the context in which men and women, slaves free, Jews and Greeks have complete oneness is that context. Two, I see no reason why this Galatians 3:28 passage should become the keyhole passage through which to filter the rest of the New Testament teaching on gender. Three, one in Christ I think does mean equal standing before God, but it's a leap of logic to say that same standing before God in salvation means identical role in church or family. And there will be times in church and family when young and old, when slave and free, when men and women, when Jew and Gentile might act differently, even though they have equal standing before God. There'll be times when husbands and wives act differently, even though they have equal standing before God, Ephesians 5:21-30, and there'll be times when men and women at church might act differently, even when they have equal standing before God, 1 Timothy 2:8-10. And so I hold to the complementarian position, complementarian reading of this verse, rather than the egalitarian reading of this verse. Thanks for joining us on Daily Bible Time today. Look forward to your company Tuesday morning. See you then. God bless.